I never thought I'd meet someone like Leo in such an ordinary place. It was a Tuesday, one of those gray, forgettable days that felt like every other. I had spilled coffee on my jeans that morning, forgot my earbuds at home, and missed my usual train by exactly 40 seconds. It wasn't exactly a meet-cute kind of day. But I guess life doesn't really care if your hair's a mess and your patience is hanging by a thread. Because that was the day I saw him, at the bookstore near the station, tucked between the psychology and history sections, reading the back of a hardcover like he had all the time in the world. I noticed the book first. It was one I loved, obscure enough that most people missed it. Then I saw the way he smiled at it, the kind of half-smile that says you're remembering something. I don't usually talk to strangers, but something about that moment made me bold. I said, "That one wrecked me for a week," and he looked up, surprised, then laughed. Not in a mocking way, just warm. "Wrecked you, huh?" I'm intrigued. And just like that, we were talking. About books, sure, but then about cities we've lived in, music we listen to when we can't sleep, and the weirdest dreams we've ever had. It was like falling into a conversation you didn't know you needed. He asked if I wanted to grab coffee, and I said yes before my brain caught up to my mouth. That's how it started. With coffee and laughter and the kind of curiosity that feels a lot like hope. Over the next few weeks, Leo and I found each other in the smallest moments. He'd send me photos of dogs he passed on the street because I once said I loved mutts with uneven ears. I'd leave voice notes rambling about late-night thoughts, and he'd reply with equally long ones dissecting life and time and why cereal tastes better at midnight. We weren't officially dating yet, but there was something soft building between us, something patient and real. He never rushed anything. When we watched a movie together, he waited until halfway through to hold my hand. Just reached over gently, as if asking without words. And when I intertwined my fingers with his, he looked at me like I was something important. Not a possession. Just someone worth noticing. It was different than anything I'd known. There was no adrenaline-fueled drama, no guessing games. Just this steady, growing trust. He listened. That's what stood out most. Not just nodded or replied, he really listened. Asked questions. Remembered what I said. Brought up small details later like they mattered. I'd never been someone's priority before. Not in the way Leo made me feel like one. And yet, he never made it feel heavy or like I owed him anything in return. It was just who he was. That bookstore moment had turned into something I hadn't dared believe in. A slow burn that felt like home. But I didn't let myself fully fall right away. I had my guard up, years of messy situations and half-loved memories had made sure of that. He never pushed. Never demanded I open up all at once. He was just there. Constant. Steady. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of that kind of love. Before Leo, I often felt like I was just a lot for people. I loved deeply. I noticed everything. I cared quickly, fully, and without holding back. And over time, that became something I tried to hide. People told me I was emotional or sensitive like it was a flaw. Some said I thought too much, others said I cared too fast. It wasn't always unkind, but the message lingered, tone it down. So I did. I learned how to quiet parts of myself to make others more comfortable. I second-guessed messages. I sat with my feelings until they were small enough to swallow. I worked hard to be easy to be around, even when it hurt. When someone ghosted or pulled away, I blamed myself. I'd replay every interaction, wondering if I said the wrong thing, needed too much, came off too strong. So when I met Leo, I didn't believe the peace would last. He was kind. He listened. He made it easy to talk, but I still waited for him to back away. It wasn't about him. It was the pattern I knew. I hesitated with every text. I worried I was over-explaining or asking too many questions. I paid attention to gaps in conversation like they were signs of trouble. One evening, I told him, carefully, not wanting to sound like I was fishing for reassurance, I've been told I feel things more than most. Sometimes I wonder if I make relationships heavier than they need to be. He looked at me without blinking. Calm, open. You don't make things heavier, he said. You just don't pretend they're light when they're not. He didn't try to fix me or reframe everything. He just said that, and it landed deeper than any grand speech could have. He didn't flinch when I was anxious. He didn't withdraw when I needed closeness. And he didn't make me feel strange for the way I moved through the world, with feeling, with care, with depth. Around him, I stopped shrinking. If I was quiet, he held space for it. If I needed clarity, he gave it. If I spiraled into doubt, he helped me return to calm, not because he had to, but because he wanted to be someone safe. He wasn't trying to impress me or win me over. He just showed up. Again and again. Soft, consistent, present. It felt like breathing air I didn't know I'd been missing. With him, I didn't feel like I had to prove I was worth the effort. I didn't feel like a puzzle to be solved or a storm to be endured. I just felt accepted. He made room for the version of me I used to hide. And over time, that helped me believe I didn't need to apologize for being fully myself. Maybe love doesn't have to be about performing or shrinking or earning. Maybe it's about meeting someone who chooses you not in spite of who you are, but because of it. It's strange how quiet life becomes when you stop constantly managing someone else's reactions. With Leo, I didn't have to rehearse my words or worry about being too emotional. I didn't overanalyze silence or feel the need to fill every gap with explanation. I could just be. And that just being was something I hadn't experienced in a long time. He didn't praise me for being low maintenance. He didn't disappear when things got hard. He didn't treat vulnerability like a burden. When I needed time to talk through something, he listened. When I was quiet, he checked in, gently, not because he was trying to fix me, but because he cared. That was new. I started noticing how different I felt. I laughed more. I rested better. I didn't carry the same low-level tension that came from trying to stay small, simple, easy. He never made me feel like love had to be earned by being agreeable or undemanding. Instead, he reminded me that love could feel calm. Reliable. Clear. I wasn't walking on eggshells anymore. And when conflict happened, and of course it didn't feel like the end of something. We talked. We listened. We repaired. And for the first time, I realized that love wasn't about avoiding all discomfort, it was about having a safe place to work through it. Being with him didn't mean everything was perfect. It meant I didn't feel alone in the effort anymore. The weight I used to carry, the constant urge to explain myself, to soften my feelings, to anticipate what might scare someone off, began to lift. This was a relationship where I could exhale. And that changed everything. There was a moment, small, quiet, unremarkable to anyone else, when I realized this was the first time I felt safe in a relationship. We were sitting in his car after dinner, just listening to music. I had my feet tucked under me, my head resting on the window. He was driving, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on my thigh. And I remember thinking, this is what peace feels like. No butterflies. No anxiety. No need to constantly read the room or manage my tone. No guilt for being tired or quiet or needy. I wasn't overthinking his silence. I wasn't wondering if I said too much. I wasn't calculating how to stay lovable. I just was. Fully. And the way Leo looked at me, so steady, so clear, it wasn't performative. It wasn't love based on potential. He saw me and stayed. He didn't flinch when I cried about my past. He didn't pull away when I told him I wasn't always easy to love. He didn't expect me to shrink to be more convenient. Instead, he kept choosing me in small, consistent ways. Like sending a voice note when he knew I had a hard day. Or noticing when I started to spiral and gently grounding me. Or remembering things I said in passing weeks ago, like how I loved that childhood brand of cookies, and one day, they were just sitting on my desk. He didn't perform romance. He paid attention. And I began to realize something: maybe love wasn't supposed to feel like chasing. Maybe it wasn't about always proving my worth. Maybe the right kind of love doesn't demand that you earn your place. Maybe it simply makes room for you, and keeps that room open even on your messiest days. That was new for me. And it changed how I showed up too. I didn't need to armor up anymore. I didn't have to be clever or perfect. I could show up soft. That softness, that safety, wasn't boring. It was everything. It was the beginning of learning to trust again. Not just him, but myself too. There wasn't a big dramatic moment where everything suddenly clicked. No grand confessions or over-the-top declarations. It was quieter than that, more intentional. More real. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. Leo had come over after work. I was in an old hoodie, cooking pasta. He walked in, kissed my shoulder, and started setting the table without me asking. No performance. No pretending. Just ease. We sat down, and between bites and stories about our day, he said it, almost offhandedly, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "I really like this life with you." I looked at him, and it hit me all at once: this wasn't a honeymoon phase. It wasn't newness. It was a choice, a steady, clear, mutual choice to keep building something together. And for once, I didn't doubt it. He never made me guess how he felt. He didn't make me feel like I was too much or not enough. He just made space. Not just for the best parts of me, but all of me. And I learned to do the same for him. We weren't trying to complete each other. We weren't trying to fix each other. We were two full people who chose to meet in the middle, with respect, curiosity, and care. That's what love looked like for us. Not fireworks or chaos. Not waiting by the phone. Not confusion masked as chemistry. It looked like comfort. Like someone bringing you tea without asking. Like feeling safe enough to be quiet together. Like knowing your bad days won't scare them away. It looked like showing up. Again and again. Not perfectly, but honestly. And maybe that's the whole point. Maybe love isn't about finding someone who makes your heart race, it's about finding someone who lets your heart rest. I used to think good relationships only existed in fiction or fairy tales. I thought I was too complicated, too intense, too scarred to ever fit into something that healthy. But Leo didn't want a version of me that was easier to handle. He just wanted me. And in choosing him, I finally chose myself too. So, if you're listening to this, wondering if you're too broken or too much or too late, please hear me. You're not. The right person won't need you to be less. They'll meet you where you are, and build something better with you. Just like we did. And I know, not everyone gets a story like this. Not right away. Some people wait years. Some lose themselves in the wrong people before they ever find the right ones. Some people give up completely, convinced that love is something that just isn't meant for them. I've been there too. And if that's you right now, if you're still healing from the ones who didn't see your worth, still picking up pieces from someone who made you feel like too much or not enough, I get it. But I promise you, there is nothing wrong with being who you are. There is nothing wrong with loving deeply, with wanting connection, with craving something real and safe and honest. Those things don't make you needy. They make you human. The truth is, the people who were intimidated by your feelings, who disappeared when things got real, who treated your love like a burden, those weren't your people. And that's not your fault. Leo wasn't perfect. And I'm definitely not perfect either. But the difference was this. We met each other where we were. We didn't ask the other person to shrink or perform. We didn't fall into each other like a fairy tale, we grew into each other like something real. And every day we choose again. Even on the hard days. Especially on the hard days. Love isn't meant to hurt. It's not supposed to feel like you're constantly proving or fixing or begging. The right kind of love feels like breathing. Like rest. Like being able to put your guard down and finally say, I'm home. So if you're still waiting, don't give up. Don't settle. Don't silence yourself to be chosen. Keep going. Keep growing. Keep being exactly who you are. Because I promise you, someone out there is looking for exactly that. And when it finally clicks, when you feel seen and safe and held, you'll understand why nothing else worked. Thanks for listening to my story. I hope, in some way, it reminded you that you're not alone. And that you are always, always worth loving.